In the year 2000, in a dark and dusty laboratory, we see two scientists discussing the disposal of the stocks of chemicals they have. The assistant scientist, Mr. Kim, is protesting that the chemicals are too toxic and should not be disposed of in an unregulated way, saying that if he pours all the chemicals in the sink, it would go directly into the Han River. His senior scientist, who appears to be an American military pathologist, interrupts him by arguing that the river is too wide, implying no issues will be caused. At the end of their conversation, Mr. Kim still obeys the order of his senior scientist and dumps hundreds of 30% formaldehyde in the sink. The sight of many empty bottles lining up on the table already gives us a hint that something dangerous is about to happen. The story fast-forwards to two men fishing in the Han River. This is now several years later after the disposing of the toxic chemicals. One of them sees a strange amphibious creature that looks like a mutated fish with multiple tails. Using a cup, he catches it and shows it to his friend. The creature grosses them out, and suddenly it escapes from the cup and swims away. In the next scene, while there is heavy rain, a guy attempts to end his by jumping off a bridge. He whispers that there is something big and dark underneath the water. While still standing on the edge of the bridge, we can see two other men come running to him, begging him not to jump. But the man is still whispering about what he is seeing in the water, and after cursing the two other men, he finally decides to jump off of the bridge. Now, we are introduced to the main protagonist of the film, Park Gang-doo, who is absent-mindedly manning the store. He is a clumsy and lazy vendor who runs a snack stall located at the side of the Han River, along with his father, Hee-bong. While Gang-doo is sleeping in the store, a child tries to steal some snacks, but fortunately, he is stopped by a man passing by. Hee-bong then arrives and tries to wake up Gang-doo because there are customers that need to be served. Minutes later, Hyun-seo, Gang-doo's daughter, comes back from school complaining that her uncle, Nam-il, came to school smelling like alcohol. Apparently, it is Parents' Day in their school, and Hyun-seo is the only one with her uncle instead of her parents. She also raises her concern regarding her old phone not receiving any calls and messages, because it does not have a signal. The father and daughter get inside the store and open their old box TV to watch Gang-doo's younger sister, Nam-ju, compete in an archery tournament broadcasted nationwide. Before they start watching, Gang-doo shows his daughter the money he saved to buy her a new phone. Hyun-seo dismisses it and says that it is not enough, because those are just coins that his father got from the change box. The TV finally opens, and a news report flashes on the screen saying a man has lost his life, and his body parts were left in pieces. The news grosses out Hyun-seo, and she quickly goes to the sports channel to watch her aunt compete. Hee-bong calls Gang-doo outside and scolds him, as one of the customers complains about a missing tentacle in their grilled squid. Gang-doo eventually reaches into his pocket, revealing the tentacle. Hee-bong asks him to give free beers to the aggrieved customers. While on his way to the customers, he notices a flock of park visitors standing near the water. A black figure is hanging under the bridge, to which one of the spectators says that it could be a material for construction, until they see the figure move and eventually drop itself into the water. Even more park visitors flock near the water, and Gang-doo throws a beer can, which the creature, still underwater, grabs. Other people then start to throw their very own food into the water, but the creature appears to have gone away. People start to think that the creature swam away because they threw too much food to it. But as Gang-doo looks into the other side of the river, we can now see the mutated fish, the host, chasing people. What started out as a good day turns into horror as the host starts snatching people in the park. Some of the people are eaten instantly, but some are thrown in the river or drawn behind it. It chases a couple of people who try to hide themselves inside a stall. Gang-doo, after hearing the pleading of a mother, rushes to open the other side of the stall. A tourist assists him in freeing some of the trapped people and frees the monster at the same time. It goes to the parking lot and continues chasing and eating people. Gang-doo and the tourist decide to follow it and throw a tile of cement they found on the floor of the parking lot. They successfully injure the monster, so naturally, it comes after them. Gang-doo and the tourist run for their safety, but the monster catches the ladder and pins him to the ground. Gang-doo tries to attack the monster again, but it is too late. The monster already has him. Overwhelmed by the monster's strength, Gang-doo runs away. Back at their store, we can see Hyun-seo still watching the competition with her grandpa. They are frustrated by the result of it, so she goes outside to cool off until her father grabs her to flee, along with other people running. The two trip and fall, and in the confusion, Gang-doo grabs the hand of another child, and realizes too late that the monster is running towards his daughter. By some strange twist, the monster does not swallow Hyun-seo, but grabs her with its tail and jumps back in the river. Gang-doo quickly jumps after it, but remains helpless as he sees his daughter being swallowed whole by the monster. He goes to the other side of the river, then dives back into the water. As it gets dark, military troops start to restrict and surround the area. Nam-ju, with tears in her eyes, brings the bronze medal she won in the competition to the victim's funeral. She starts to cry and hugs her father. Still drunk, Hyun-seo's uncle, Nam-il, comes soon after. He is furious at first, but eventually starts to cry. Gang-doo tries to hug him, but Nam-il is angry at him, so he keeps on pushing him away. The family wails and brawls on the floor, oblivious to the fact that everyone in the hall is looking at them, and that journalists are taking their pictures. Nam-il angrily shouts at them and tries to keep them away. He blames Gangdu for grabbing another child's hand, instead of his daughter. He says that his brother messed up again. As they begin to calm themselves, they talk about Hyun-seo's mother and how she ran away after giving birth to her. Authorities soon arrive at the mass funeral to quarantine those who were in the park during the monster incident. Nam-il stands up and demands to know the truth, but it appears the government, along with the United States, are keeping people in the dark. What has been known so far is that the tourist who helped Gangdu rescue the civilians is still alive and is infected by an unknown virus, which has heightened the measures against the hunting of the monster in the Han River. The authorities then clear the hall and escort the people to the hospital for quarantine. But suddenly Gangdu raises his hand and proudly admits that he did not touch the monster, but he was exposed to its blood. Hearing this, the authorities drag him away and put him in a body bag. While Gangdu is trying to not wake a hospital room full of people with his eating, defying the doctor's order to fast overnight for his medical test, he receives a frantic call from Hyun-seo. She frantically tells him she is in a sewer, revealing that she is still alive. As the call is dropped, all of the Park family wake up. The family report it the following day. Gangdu confusedly explains that his child is alive. Nam-lai and Nam-ju get into a heated argument with the police, and to make matters worse, their father tries to bribe them. The police, appearing quite irritated with the family's crazy request to find the middle schooler, insists that Hyun-seo is gone. The doctors intervene, but still believe that Gangdu's strangeness and hallucinations are results of the shock from seeing his daughter lose her life. The Park family decide that if the authorities will not help them, they will rescue Hyun-seo themselves. Under disguise, they attempt to slip out of the hospital and ride a getaway van for hire. The scene in the parking lot is intense, because the family almost forget Nam-ju while escaping. After the escape, Hae-bong is literally emptying his wallet to pay the goons they contacted for the getaway car, guns, and map, and the goons take away his entire wallet containing his cards as payment. Meanwhile, the siblings watch themselves being broadcasted as fugitives on the TV. While obviously underprepared in terms of both plans and resources, the family goes on their way to rescue Hyun-seo. The family introduces themselves as one of the disinfection teams of the Daesun group when they are stopped at a checkpoint. They try to bribe the checkpoint officer, named Mr. Cho, with the coins inside an instant ramen cup that Gangdu saved to buy his daughter a new phone. The officer just stands in the same place, dumbfounded with the ridiculous bribe. They then proceed to check each sewer marked on the map they bought from the goons, in the hopes of seeing Hyun-seo, but they are unsuccessful in doing so. The sewers are so dark that they need to be more alert and careful. At this point of the story, we are introduced to two male kids, Si-jin and Si-ju, who appear to take refuge in the sewers near Han River. They carefully evade the patrol in the area to steal a month's worth of food from the Park family's food stall. The younger sibling, Si-ju, wants to pocket the money he found in the store, but his older brother, Si-jin, makes him return it. He claims that what they are doing is not stealing, but seo-rai, or the Korean traditional practice for youngsters to appease their hunger. The younger sibling grunts, saying that taking food is still stealing, and he does not know what seo-rai means, but he leaves the money anyway. On their way back, while their backpacks are filled to the brim, they suddenly encounter the monster. At first, they see its tail, then it starts to swing above them and chase them. They run as fast as they can until they are a few meters from a door that could lead them to safety, but unfortunately, they do not make it in time, and the monster still captures them. In the monster's hideout, we can see Hyun-seo catching droplets of water using only the palm of her hand. She's parched and has not had anything to eat. A few minutes later, she hears loud footsteps coming and quickly lies on the floor and pretends to be unconscious. The monster then drops the kids' bodies back into the pit. Hyun-seo immediately checks to see if they are alive, only to find Si-ju is the only survivor. She shields his eyes when the monster comes back to peek, after hearing the noises in the pit. In the Park's family stall, Gangdu dozes off after a suspenseful day of car chase and rescue. In the eyes of Nam-ju and Nam-il, he is the stupid sibling. Guilt-ridden, their father explains to the two that he was absent when Gangdu was a child. Left to his own devices, he resorted to seo-rai, but was still extremely malnourished. Hence, he dozes off frequently, even as an adult. But while Hae-bong is telling all of this to his two other children, the siblings fall asleep. When Gangdu wakes, he freezes and whispers that the monster has been watching them from the outside. Hae-bong quietly aims his shotgun at the monster. After the impact, the monster tackles their stall, which causes it to go upside down, but Hae-bong fires another shot into its head. When they all go outside the damaged stall, they see the monster lying on the ground. Nam-il, against the caution of his father, fires to finish the still-breathing monster, which causes it to run away. They try to chase it with their guns, but it goes above the bridge, then dives back in the water. By this time, they are seen by the authorities, and so they decide to retreat to their truck. Hae-bong insists on finishing the monster alone, and orders his children to run. He asks for a gun with a bullet, so Gangdu hands over his shotgun. As they keep on running, They see Nam-ju starting to shoot arrows towards the monster until Nam-il grabs her to safety. The monster creeps up to Hee-bong, but he finds himself out of bullets. Gang-do, realizing he made a mistake in counting the remaining bullets, rushes to get his waving father, but the monster tackles Hee-bong to the ground. The siblings watch in terror while the monster smashes their father's body on the concrete before fleeing. Nam-il takes Nam-ju away from their father's corpse as the authorities come near. Gang-do, unable to leave his father behind, places a newspaper over his head and comes back and gets arrested by the authorities. Nam-il meets with an old college friend who works in telecommunications. It is revealed that this friend was also a former political activist. After a quick catch-up, they enter the building where they will aim to track Hyeon-seo with her last call. His friend keeps on checking on the location of Nam-ju, to which she answers that they separated in the sewers. Pretending to check in his manager's office for the password, Nam-il's friend enters a room where dozens of police are waiting to entrap Nam-il. While his friend and the police are discussing tax on reward money, Nam-il finds the password and gets the location where Hyeon-seo made the call. At this moment, two groups of police come out to detain Nam-il. Without wasting a second, he memorizes Hyeon-seo's location and short-circuits the power to escape, leaving the police trapped in their own entrapment. Nam-il runs outside the building, only to find out that there are also police cars waiting for him. He hides at the edge of the bridge and jumps. Contrary to what he told his friend, Nam-il sends the location to Nam-ju through a text message before finally succumbing to exhaustion. Nam-ju does not instantly see the text message because her phone is turned off due to low battery. It takes a couple of days before she finally has the opportunity to charge her phone. When she finally reads the text message, Nam-ju rushes to the Wonheo Bridge with her bow and arrow. Surely enough, on her way to the big sewer, she encounters the monster. The monster tackles her even before she can fire her arrow, and she drops to a narrow space in the sewer where the monster cannot reach her. The story now comes back to Gang-do, who is detained in a hospital, in which he is given one test after another. He receives anesthetic, but remains awake throughout the painful procedures. He keeps on shouting that his daughter is under the Wonheo Bridge, and begging for the hospital staff to let him go. An American virologist enters the laboratory, along with his Korean assistant and interpreter. They talk personally to Gang-do, sympathizing with him as he cries out that his words matter too. In the end, the sympathies are only pretend, as they diagnose him with signs of dementia and plan to perform a lobotomy. The American virologist and his Korean assistant have a quick conversation about how the virus is not real, and the news spread by the media is not true. Gang-do is helpless as he overhears the conversation and knows the truth about the non-existent virus. Meanwhile, Hyeon-seo is distracting Se-ju in the monster's hideout by talking about the food they are going to eat once they get out of the pit and letting him list the top 10 foods he wants to eat. They also have a talk about Se-ju's background. As Hyeon-seo starts to think about how they can escape, she comes up with a plan. She takes the clothes off of bodies and ties them to a police baton. With help from the young kid, she throws the makeshift rope towards the railing at the top of the pit. Since the rope is not long enough for her to climb onto, she tries to piggyback the kid on her shoulder, but is discouraged by the sound of the monster approaching. They quickly go back to the sewer pipe to hide and peek at the monster, hoping that it will cough up a body with a working phone this time. Unfortunately, they witness a different kind of horror instead. The monster, which used to cough up whole victims, now regurgitates skeletons of its victim. Hyeon-seo looks away at the sight, thinking that the monster is not aware of them. However, when she looks back, she finds it at the mouth of the pipe they are hiding in. Once again, the scene goes back to Gang-do, finally conscious after his brain operation. This time, he appears to be more than conscious, with more clarity and determination in his eyes. He takes a nurse hostage and threatens to infect medical staff and military alike with his virus-ridden blood. He rushes out of the hospital building while keeping the nurse hostage. On the other hand, Nam-il also gains consciousness and meets a peculiar homeless man who kept him safe while he was out. He asks the way to Wonheo Bridge and pays to get the man's bag and soju bottles. Out of the blue, the homeless man bangs him in the head with the bottle and leads the way. The two of them ride in a taxi and prepare the soju as Molotov cocktails. The taxi driver, hesitant to take them all the way, agrees when promised to be given 4 times the amount. Back in the pit, Hyeon-seo wakes up with a fright, thinking that Se-ju has passed on. Fortunately, he has not, but he is super sick. Hyeon finds the monster sleeping just below the makeshift rope they made. She tells Se-ju to stay put, that she will call the doctors, paramedics, and policemen, all of them. The scene turns silent. Hyeon-seo picks up a can of beer that once fell from the monster's mouth and throws it to the monster to see if it will remain asleep. Hyeon-seo then rushes towards the back of the monster. She leaps and grabs the rope. At the same time, both Hyeon-seo and Se-ju freeze in place as they realize that the monster has grabbed Hyeon-seo using its tail. The monster carefully places Hyeon-seo back on the ground, like a doll, unmoving. Se-ju pees his pants at the scene, and Hyeon-seo instructs him to go back inside the pipe. At the very same moment they run, the monster also jumps back to get them. The scene ends with the sound of Hyeon-seo screaming. At last, Gangdu finds the monster's hideout. He lowers himself using the rope and calls out for his daughter, but no one replies. While still hanging on the rope, the monster passes by above him, and he sees an arm dangling from the side of its mouth. With what he sees, he immediately goes back to the top of the pit and follows the monster. Meanwhile, Namju finally wakes up, and feeling that the monster is fast approaching her, tries to hide and moves out of its way. When the monster passes by the spot where she is hiding, she prepares herself to fire an arrow, but she is stopped by Gangdu, who fears that Hyeonseo will be hit. The monster comes out to find a huge gathering of protesters near the river. They are protesting against the use of Agent Yellow, a chemical agent created by the American military to combat the monster, and the arrest of Gangdu. As the monster swims towards the protesters, Gangdu is running behind, calling out to his daughter. The protesters quickly disperse as they see the nearing monster. Gangdu jumps off the bridge to stop the police officer shooting the monster. Again, due to the fear that Hyeonseo will also fall. Around the time that Agent Yellow is finally released, Gangdu tackles the police. He rushes to the monster, opens its mouth, and pulls out Hyeonseo and Seju, embracing each other. He picks up his unconscious daughter, and Namju and Namlai come quickly after, embracing Hyeonseo inside the fog of Agent Yellow. In the background, we can see the monster, protesters, and police losing consciousness to the chemical agent. Suspiciously, there are also 2 Americans in full protective gear that seem to be recording everything. At the height of his emotions, Gangdu picks up a road sign, removes its ends to fashion a spear, and attacks the monster. The other 2 siblings cry because Hyeonseo is still unconscious and not breathing. Namil finds his brother lying on the ground, nearly devoured by the monster. To defend himself, he throws Saju Molotov bombs at the monster. He continues to chase it with bombs, which the monster evades. Being at the right place at the right time, the homeless man pours gasoline into the mouth of the monster, and Namil prepares to throw his last bomb. This time, it's in the hope of setting the monster on fire. The bomb slips out of his hand and shatters on the ground. When it feels like all is lost, in comes Namju. She dips the end of her arrow into the fire and shoots the monster, bullseye. It shrieks in pain as it burns alive. As a last-ditch attempt for survival, it runs towards the water, where it once again meets Gangdu's makeshift spear that he thrusts into its mouth. The monster lets out its final cry before finally dropping on the ground. Gangdu returns back to where Seju is lying, shakes him awake and embraces him, along with Hyeonseo's body. Then, Gangdu carries Seju to safety. The closing scene appears almost the opposite of the first scene where we see the protagonist. Instead of a sunny summer day, it is dark and dingy. No more of the bustling life by the river and the many park visitors and park stalls. Actually, the only stall remaining is Gangdu's. Hyeonseo is nowhere to be found, implying that she did not survive the incident. We also do not know what happened to Namju and Namil. We can tell that Gangdu is now more alert and has a presence of mind. He still has his gun with him and is vigilantly guarding their house. After seeing some strange movement in the dark and confirming that it is nothing, he prepares dinner for him and Seju, and they eat in peace.